I'm Emily, 40 years old. Yesterday, I filed for divorce and ended my 12-year marriage. The reason for the divorce is related to various issues stemming from my infertility. Of course, in this day and age, you can't divorce just because your wife is infertile. However, if the wife also wants a divorce, there's no problem finalizing it. For the past 5 years, I've been exhausted from fertility treatments and my husband's uncooperative attitude and words. Honestly, I'm relieved to be divorced. I manage a coffee shop. It's a popular place, part of a chain based in Seattle, offering authentic drip coffee.
Emily, is it true you got divorced? In that case, I might just have to make a move on you.
That light comment came from Matt, the head of staff members. He might seem a bit superficial, but he's skilled at drip brewing and is a reliable staff member who's always attentive. He's quite good-looking, which makes him popular with our female customers.
Don't worry about me, I'm not feeling down. Besides, younger guys aren't really my type.
Matt is 32 years old. He's 8 years younger than me. I've never considered him a potential romantic partner, though his casual words do help heal my tired heart a bit. I married my ex-husband Jake when we were both 28. He was a regular customer at the shop. When he won a pair of tickets during a movie collaboration campaign we were running, he was really happy.
Do you like movies?
Just as I was about to ask him that, he said,
Would you go with me? I don't really have any friends.
That was how we first connected. We ended up having the same taste in movies, so we started going to see movies together, and eventually, we got married. After getting married, having kids is the natural next step, right? But back then, I was still really enjoying my work, and Jake wasn't exactly eager for kids either, so we thought we'd aim to have them by around age 35, taking our time about it. Since I was a kid, I always sort of assumed that once I got married, I'd naturally have children. Most of my friends who got married early had kids right after, and some even had shotgun weddings. Therefore, I thought, without giving it much thought, that I'd eventually have kids too. However, a year passed after getting married, then too, and I still wasn't pregnant. When I found out that not getting pregnant after trying for more than a year means infertility, I was shocked. I didn't absolutely need to have a child, but I couldn't help but be concerned. I talked to Jake about it, but he just brushed it off with,
Whatever. It'll happen eventually.
Honestly, at that time, I didn't take it too seriously either. Whenever we visited Jake's parents, my in-laws would subtly hint,
We'd love to see our grandkids soon.
but it didn't bother me much. My parents, on the other hand, never said anything like that. Probably because my younger sister had gotten married early and already had 3 kids of her own. That's why I felt more at ease. However, I started taking my temperature every day and marking the calendar for the most fertile days. Apparently, Jake didn't like this. He mentioned that it feels like an obligation, which deters him and results in minimal cooperation. Probably on purpose, he'd come home drunk on those days. Looking back now, I think this is when the discord between us began. At 33, during a gynecological exam, I consulted the doctor about infertility, and they told me that if I was going to do infertility treatment, I should start as soon as possible. They said the older I get, the harder it will be to conceive, and the risks of childbirth increase, and that's when I finally started seriously thinking about having a child. Maybe there's a big difference between being a 33-year-old man and a 33-year-old woman. To Jake, it was still, we don't need kids yet, but for me, it was already a huge deal.
I'm thinking of starting infertility treatment. I need you to cooperate.
Jake's response was,
What? No way. I don't want to. I'm healthy. If you're not getting pregnant, it must be the woman's fault.
What a terrible thing to say. It seemed like his knowledge about pregnancy and childbirth was way outdated. To be honest, I couldn't blame him too much. By 33, I had already surpassed the age where my skin was in its prime. It wasn't just my skin that was declining. My eggs were aging too. Certainly, being younger and in good health typically reduces the risk and increases the ease of becoming pregnant. Moreover, the scariest part was learning that the number of eggs is fixed from birth and never increases. Some women are born with fewer eggs, and some stop ovulating in their mid-30s. Finding this out shocked me even more. I used to think the notion of an ideal age for marriage was just another way to belittle women, but it turns out there was a reason for it. I regretted not knowing more about the female body and my own. The test results showed nothing wrong with me. With this, I wasn't getting pregnant. They said it could also be due to an issue with my husband. There are cases where neither partner has any issues, yet they can't conceive. Either way, one thing was certain: we needed to work together on the infertility treatment. When we visited Jake's parents for Christmas, they once again made a comment about wanting to see their grandchildren, so I complained that Jake wasn't cooperating with the treatment. Of course, I added that I didn't have any particular issues. His parents did tell Jake to support me, but then I overheard something shocking.
If you can't have a child without infertility treatment, you're still young. Why don't you divorce her and find a younger wife?
What? So it's all my fault that we can't have a child? I already didn't get along well with my mother-in-law, and this made me feel even worse. Jake was quite reluctant, but he grudgingly agreed to cooperate with the infertility treatment and went to the clinic. It was during his first test.
I've never felt so embarrassed in my life.
He complained to me. Well, I was just as embarrassed. It was clear he wasn't taking the infertility treatment seriously. The results came back normal. By then, I was 35. They said natural conception might be difficult, so we tried artificial insemination, but it didn't work, and then we moved on to in vitro fertilization. This was tough, both physically and mentally, and very costly. Furthermore, Jake said with a smirk,
Even if we have a kid through this experimental stuff, I doubt I'd feel like it's mine.
I almost broke down hearing that.
All you're doing is providing sperm. It's 100 times harder for me.
I yelled at him more than once. While we were going through treatment to have a child, we had already lost our married life. This was the hardest time, both physically and mentally. Jake's heartless words, coming from someone who was supposed to be my partner, hurt me deeply.
It's costing so much money, and it's still not working? Maybe you're just defective, huh?
Why did I have to endure such words? Even if I did get pregnant, would I be able to love and raise this man's child? That thought crossed my mind, and I questioned myself. Sure, I'm sure I'd love my own child. However, I had already lost my love for my husband. I couldn't imagine a child born into such a household being happy. I felt my passion for having a child rapidly fading. In the end, I never got pregnant, and I turned 38. I decided to stop infertility treatment. That's what I told Jake. It was a big decision for me to make. Jake's reaction was,
Well, I guess that's fine. We won't get back the money we spent, though. What a waste.
He spoke as if it had nothing to do with him. After that, we barely saw each other, living mostly isolated in our own rooms. Occasionally, I could hear Jake having cheerful conversations from his room. Apparently, he was chatting with women on live chat, but I didn't feel jealous at all. The word divorce was always on my mind, but even discussing it felt like a hassle, and now I think it was a waste of time. Just before I turned 40, Jake brought it up.
Hey, there's no point in us staying married anymore, is there? We can't have kids, and there's no reason to stay together. Plus, I still want my own kids, and it's clear I can't have them with you.
At that moment, I felt an emotion close to hatred, but I didn't feel sad or lonely. I pretty much felt the same about separating. As a result, we divorced surprisingly smoothly, gave up our apartment, and I ended up spending my 40th birthday back at my parents' house. Knowing most of the situation, my parents were kind to me. My father said,
I hope you can take your time and rest both your mind and body.
My mother shared something I'd never heard before.
Before I had you, I also went through something sad. There was a baby who wasn't born. Pregnancy and childbirth have always been tough.
Recalling the hard times I went through, I couldn't help but break down in tears at my parents' comfort. 3 days after filing for divorce, I got a call from my ex-husband, which I didn't expect since we had no reason to contact each other anymore.
Did you file the divorce papers?
I thought he was just calling to confirm that, but then he said,
I'm marrying a younger girl. She's 18. Believe it or not. We're gonna register our marriage in 2 or 3 days. So if you haven't filed the divorce papers yet, it'd be a problem.
I couldn't help but shout.
What?
It had only been a few days since our divorce was officially finalized. Apparently, in Washington state, both men and women must wait for 90 days after a divorce. Whether he knows about it or not, getting remarried within less than a week seems way too soon. An 18-year-old? Jake is the same age as me, 40. Isn't that too big of an age gap, no matter how you look at it? Why would an 18-year-old girl want to marry a 40-year-old man who's neither rich nor particularly handsome? It's not unusual to be curious about that. Questions swirled in my head, and I hung up without giving much of a response.
What's wrong? What happened?
My father, noticing that something was off, asked me worriedly. When I said,
Jake is remarrying an 18-year-old girl in 2 or 3 days.
my father became furious. He's usually calm and rarely raises his voice, but this time he did, saying,
What is that? That's beyond outrageous.
Remarrying just days after the divorce likely meant they had been seeing each other for quite a while. In other words, it was infidelity. It was something I had suspected, but I had no intention of confronting Jake about it then. Still, it was hard to believe. I didn't care if he was being deceived, but I did want to know the truth.
Honestly, Jake wasn't particularly handsome, and lately he's gotten a bit of a belly, and his hair's thinning, just an ordinary middle-aged guy. Why would an 18-year-old girl marry someone like that?
My mom spoke exactly what I was feeling, and it made me laugh a bit.
Yeah, I'm really curious too, but it doesn't matter anymore since we've broken up. Let him be happy or miserable, I don't care.
I said that, but my father wasn't satisfied. He actually hired a private investigator to look into it. Apparently, the investigator asked repeatedly.
This isn't an infidelity investigation, correct?
It must have seemed unusual to ask about how an ex-husband met his new wife. My father mentioned that the investigator seemed to find it amusing.
Even I want to hear the investigation report. Your father isn't great at explaining things.
My mother said, and so, after the investigation was complete, a report meeting was held at home.
Well, first of all, this is your ex-husband's current wife.
The investigator spread out photos on the table in the living room, and the three of us leaned in to look. After a moment of silence, we all burst into laughter.
There's no way. This woman can't be 18,
said my mom.
Yeah, she looks well over 30.
My dad added. What on earth made Jake say this woman was 18? The three of us waited for the investigator's explanation.
It seems they met online. The woman's profile said 18 years old. Really want to get married. Love older men. Kind older guys. Please message me. The profile picture was heavily edited.
I could see a slight smile on the investigator's face. Did Jake really fall for such a suspicious profile?
It looks like they communicated through video chat, so he must have believed it. Nowadays, you can enhance video chat almost in real time, practically to the point of being a different person.
I did hear cheerful conversations coming from his room. This was the woman he was talking to? Surely, meeting in person would reveal the truth. There are limits to how much you can fake. To my question, the investigator took out another photo and said,
This woman here, she's not 18, but she is 20. She was used as a stand-in when they met in person.
Indeed, the hairstyle and facial features were similar, but it was clearly a different person. What on earth was the point of going to such great lengths?
The point was that she wanted to get married. The woman's real age is 38.
38?
Together, we lifted our voices, but the investigator was unfazed and kept arranging more photographs. There, surrounded by some rough-looking men, were Jake and his new bride. He had a tense, fearful smile. With the ever-increasing cast of characters, the information was overwhelming, and I was starting to get confused.
The woman's father is the head of a small criminal organization in a downtown area. Because of her environment, there hadn't been many men willing to get close to her. Even if a relationship started, once the man found out about her family's business, he'd get scared and run away. That's why she decided to look for a partner online.
But wouldn't it have been easier for her to marry one of the guys in her own circle?
My father asked, raising a valid question.
And even if she used a younger woman as a stand-in, she'd have to show up herself when it came time to get married, right?
My mother added, also raising a good point.
Exactly, you're right. Those are very good questions. First, this woman had always said she didn't want to marry someone in the same line of work. She actually liked doctors who look good in white coats, but that was a bit too ambitious. So she settled for someone who looked like an office worker with glasses.
Indeed, my ex-husband was an office worker who wore glasses.
And here's where it gets interesting. During her dates with the stand-in, she would book a hotel room in advance, hide there, and when things started to get intimate, she would switch places in the dark. She would also make sure Jake drank quite a bit, so he never noticed.
At this point, it felt like I was listening to a radio drama. My parents seemed to feel the same. They looked eager to hear more. Of course, so was I.
After a few such dates, and now she's pregnant.
What?
I was stunned. After all the effort we put into fertility treatments without success, she got pregnant through such a ridiculous scheme?
At that point, it was a done deal. The stand-in told him she was pregnant and wanted to get married. Jake happily agreed, only for the real woman to show up, surrounded by her scary brothers, pressing him to take responsibility as a man. He was terrified and signed the marriage certificate.
When Jake called to confirm if I had submitted the divorce papers, he probably didn't know the truth yet. He must have been over the moon about having a baby and marrying an 18-year-old girl. Thinking about what happened afterward was just too funny. My parents and I ended up laughing until our stomachs hurt. Still, what an incredibly capable investigator. I didn't expect him to investigate everything in such detail. Then, scratching his head, the detective said,
Actually, while I was investigating, the bride noticed me. When I explained that the ex-wife's family was curious about the reason for the quick marriage, she happily told me everything in detail. She even let me take pictures.
I take back my praise. He wasn't capable at all. No wonder the photos were all perfectly posed.
Honestly, she's quite a character. She's got guts and a good sense. I have no idea what she saw in Jake. Oh, excuse me.
I didn't mind him speaking ill of Jake, nor did I feel any jealousy toward this woman. In fact, I wanted to say that she did a great job in deceiving Jake.
Maybe he was the only foolish guy who fell for that sketchy profile?
When I said that, everyone in the room nodded repeatedly.
In any case, I doubt Jake will ever be able to divorce again. It seems his family wants nothing to do with him anymore, and he's practically been disowned. His employer hasn't found out yet, but who knows how long that'll last. He'll probably live a small, quiet life surrounded by his scary wife and her brothers.
This time, everyone nodded at the investigator's words.
It's best not to get involved anymore. If by any chance your ex-husband comes crying to you, it would be wise to ignore him.
Of course, I plan to do that without needing investigators' advice. There is a part of me that wants to throw a little jab at him, though. That's right. Something like this.
Congratulations on your marriage. I heard your wife is pregnant? We couldn't have a child, but you must have amazing compatibility with your new wife. Guess a young wife really makes a difference. Best wishes.
Of course, I wouldn't actually do it,
That was a fun job.
said the talkative, not so capable investigator before taking his payment and leaving. After he left, my family and I continued to talk about Jake and his new wife, and as we did, I felt a surprising sense of relief and clarity. You never know what life will bring. I'm sure Jake never thought his life would turn out like this. What if I had started trying for a baby sooner? What if Jake had been more supportive? Maybe we would have had a different life. There's no point dwelling on what ifs. 6 months have passed since Jake gave us all a good laugh. You really never know what life will bring. In a way, Jake's life had a huge, unexpected twist, but something surprising also happened to me. I hope you'll indulge me a little because I want to brag. The truth is, I'm 3 months pregnant. The father is Matt, the head of staff members at the shop. It turns out that when he said,
I might really make a move on you.
he wasn't joking, he approached me repeatedly after that.
I've always liked you, but I think messing around with someone who's married is wrong. Now that you're divorced, I won't hold back.
Who wouldn't be swayed by a younger, fairly handsome guy saying that? Soon after becoming romantically involved with him, I got pregnant. Can things like this really happen? What were all those years of infertility treatment for? Maybe it really was about compatibility. Or perhaps it was just that my compatibility with Jake was terrible. When I told Matt and my parents about the pregnancy, they were all overjoyed. I'll be 41 by the time I give birth. I had almost given up on having my own child, so I do feel some hesitation. It will be my first birth, and it's considered a pregnancy at an advanced age, so I have a lot of worries and concerns. However, Matt and my parents have promised to back me up no matter what. Once my morning sickness subsides, we're planning a small family wedding party.